On August 20th, at precisely 3:20 a.m., a military transport jet with no national insignia touched down at Ouagadougou International Airport. The air fell silent as men in black uniforms pried open the cargo bay. The airport staff could only stare, not daring to speak. Nearly 300 people emerged, shackled, silent, stripped of identity. No passports, no explanation. When a Burkinabe officer asked who they were, an American agent smirked, "They're yours now." For months, whispers had surfaced about a secret U.S. deportation pact, a covert operation authorized by Donald Trump himself. Its name, Operation Exodus, forced migration as a geopolitical weapon. But the whispers were about to turn into fire. Within days, a leaked document appeared online. Exodus, Phase 1. Inside were internal memos, flight manifests, and a directive from the Oval Office marked top secret. The memo's message was chilling. Commence immediate offloading of stateless and untraceables to pre-cleared partner nations. Burkina Faso, priority drop site. This is not negotiation. This is leverage, not diplomacy, not aid. Leverage of human lives. The plan was simple in cruelty. Dump the unwanted where the state was strong enough to absorb, but too isolated to resist. Burkina Faso, under Captain Ibrahim Traoré, was neither silent nor weak. Hours after the leak, the Burkinabe government issued a statement. Our nation did not authorize these landings. Burkina Faso is not a storage facility for failed empires. Images surfaced. Men and women confined behind wire fences near the airport. Among them, pregnant mothers, elderly men, and a diabetic teenager. None had legal counsel. None knew why they were there. And then, the world saw the footage. The leak ignited headlines. Trump deports without borders. Burkina Faso becomes America's dumping ground. Human rights experts called it geostrategic trafficking. The White House denied everything. Press Secretary Karen Dalton claimed all flights were legal and coordinated with vetted allies. But no one could explain why the only paper trail carried Trump's own signature. In Ouagadougou, President Ibrahim Traoré stepped before the press. Behind him, satellite images, flight records, and the same signature in red ink. His words were sharp and unflinching. We may be poor, but we will never be a pit where empires offload their human consequence. Across Africa, silence turned to thunder. From Dakar to Lagos, people marched with placards reading, "Humans are not leverage." In Accra, students walked blindfolded through the streets. Symbolic stateless marches. In Burkina Faso, churches and mosques united in one demand: dignity and due process. And then came another leak. Internal ICE training documents for Operation Exodus. Agents were instructed to call deportees units. A map of West Africa marked Burkina Faso in red. Below it, one word: expendable. Within 48 hours, the United Nations expressed grave concern. Amnesty International called it a premeditated human dump. But it was one video that broke the world's heart. A young man whispering to the camera, "I was born in the Bronx. I don't even speak French. My country doesn't want me, and now this one doesn't either." He paused, then asked, "Where do I belong?" That question shook continents. In Bamako, at the African Economic Sovereignty Summit, 54 flags hung in silence. Every nation represented. One chair stood empty. The United States, invited, declined. Ibrahim Traoré walked to the podium wearing a simple black tunic embroidered with the word dignity. Behind him, leaked audio from the White House Situation Room played, Trump's voice saying, "You want to play sovereign? Let's see how Traoré handles 10,000 bodies on his doorstep." The hall froze. Then Traoré spoke. "They used our gold. They used our oil. Now they use our people. But hear this. Burkina Faso will not break." Applause erupted. Outside, thousands chanted, "We are not your trash." Africa had drawn its line. Civil aviation unions across West Africa declared, "No plane linked to Operation Exodus will land, refuel, or pass through our airspace." In South Africa, lawyers prepared to file charges against the Trump administration at the International Criminal Court. Crimes of human dumping. In the U.S., African-American leaders stood in solidarity. "We were once cargo. Now they try to make us cargo again." Protests reached London, Paris, Chicago. Murals appeared reading, "Deported like dust. Returned with fire." Trump, defiant as ever, mocked the outrage at a rally. They want to cry about human rights? Fine. Let them deal with Burkina Faso. But this time, his words didn't shape the story. They deepened it. Traoré answered not with rage, but resolve. Standing before Parliament, he declared, You think you can weaponize the displaced? We turn every wound into witness. He announced the creation of the Continental Refugee Dignity Fund to rebuild lives, not as victims but as citizens. And then, a bolder move. The proposal of a new global court, the International Tribunal for Migration Justice. The world had never seen anything like it. Within days, Burkina Faso passed the Sovereign Migration Defense Act, banning any foreign state from depositing migrants on its soil without a ratified treaty. Penalty: expulsion, aircraft seizure, and criminal prosecution. One by one, other African nations followed, forming the first legal firewall against migration imperialism. Investigations soon uncovered private contractors, Florida-based aviation firms disguising deportation flights as medical missions. Traore went live on national TV. This was not confusion. This was infiltration. A plan to turn our land into your logistical landfill contracts were exposed. Accounts frozen. Washington scrambled. Congress opened hearings. Even inside ICE, whistleblowers leaked memos calling Operation Exodus a moral catastrophe. But what began as crisis became a revolution. In Addis Ababa, the African Union convened an emergency session, every head of state present. The resolution was historic. No African soil shall be used as a burial ground for the failed policies of foreign powers. The AU unanimously endorsed Traoré's Tribunal for Migration Justice. Crowds outside chanted, "No soil for sale, no soul for trade." From Latin America to Southeast Asia, nations echoed support. Brazil, Indonesia, Mexico, all co-signed the initiative. Back in Washington, diplomatic isolation deepened. African nations recalled ambassadors. Trade agreements came under review. The old balance of power was shifting, not with weapons but with will. And from that will, something unexpected grew. Burkina Faso, long dismissed as small, poor, peripheral, became the center of a moral awakening. Not about power, about principle, not about borders, about belonging. In a televised address, Traoré said, "They weaponized desperation. We turned it into defense. They thought they'd bury us in bodies. We built a wall of dignity." The final image wasn't of soldiers or diplomats, but a classroom. 30 children, all deported under Operation Exodus, learning together under a tin roof near Ouagadougou. One boy, 9 years old, held up his drawing. 2 torn flags, one American, one Burkinabe. Between them, a child. Above, 6 handwritten words. "I had no papers. Now I matter." That image spread across the world. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was true. Human dignity, not granted by empire, not stamped in passports, but innate, unbreakable. And it was Burkina Faso, small, defiant, unyielding, that reminded the world. Traoré's final words echoed beyond borders. "You tried to weaponize human beings. You failed. Because people are not policy, and this land will not be your landfill." He held up the child's drawing and said softly, "They mined our gold, they mapped our lands, and now they try to discard our people. But we are not debris. We are the soil. And from that soil, something grows. Africa, once the continent from which people were taken, had now become the continent where people were restored. And in that act, not of revenge, but of resolve, the world was reminded. No one is disposable. Not anymore. Not here. More. They tried to silence a continent, but Africa spoke louder. Stay with us, like, subscribe, and witness the rise of a new Africa.